The level of actual like message from your brain is amazing. And if we aren't using that yet, just think about what you could open up. Like think about how much more you have to work with.
Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in. Hi, my friend. Welcome back to the Live Unrestricted podcast. I'm going to get right into it. I don't want to waste your time. And I want to bring you part 2 of my conversation with the incredible Megan Blacksmith. If you haven't listened to part 1 from last week, where we talked about the real reason why you feel stuck with food and your body, you really are going to want to go back to it and listen, because we started diving into the invisible elements that you're not seeing when you're looking up to people and you're seeing the success and they're living the life that you want and they just look happy and they look genuine and they look authentically like abundant in their life. You might be thinking about, what can I imitate? What are they doing that I can see, right? Because that's all we can really base ourselves on, is what we see with our visual eyes. And we try to mimic them. And you don't end up getting the same results, and you don't end up experiencing the success that you want. And then you end up feeling frustrated, like, what am I missing? And so that's what we talked about in part 1, is what is that invisible thing that you're missing? The 95% of that iceberg that you're not seeing, that's under the surface, that's invisible to the human eye. So definitely make sure that you go back and listen to part 1, whether that's you pause now and you go, or you listen after this episode, because today we're talking about how to experience a massive breakthrough in your life. And I'm actually going to change those words to how to create a massive breakthrough in your life, because we are going to give you the strategies and the tools and the mindsets and what you need to implement in order to make this happen, right? It's not just going to happen to you. It's something that's intentional. Every single breakthrough, every quantum leap that I've experienced in my life has happened because I made the decision to go through the process. And we're going to talk about what that process actually requires to create something new, something different, and something better in my life. And I want that for you too, because I don't want you to keep feeling stuck and frustrated that you're trying and you're dedicating so much of your time and your energy and your mental space and even your money to try to change, and it never lasts. Like, that is such a frustrating feeling. And this is what I work with in my clients all the time, right? Like, these women who have been trying and struggling for decades, even their entire lives. And then finally, when they come into Food Freedom Academy, we have a completely different approach. And it's within a few weeks, sometimes even like just the first few days, that they're experiencing breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough and asking themselves, how was I not taught this sooner? Why is no one talking about this? And I want to talk about it and I want to bring it to you. So I'm going to bring to you part 2 of the conversation with Megan. If you weren't there for the last episode, just a reminder who Megan is. So she is a holistic health coach, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, speaker, NLP trainer, and mindset ninja. She's the co-founder of Zesty and co-host of Becoming Zesty podcast, and she helps people experience massive transformations and breakthroughs in their lives, and she's here to help you do the same. Without further ado, enjoy the second part of the conversation and get ready to create massive breakthroughs in your life. The more you feel unsafe and the more you feel like you come from a place of like desperation, I have to change, I need to lose this weight, it's counterproductive, because then you're going to be thrown back into the thing that got you here in the first place, which is going to be dieting after dieting, which is only going to lead you to feel more unsafe in your body. So it's like this concept that self-acceptance and self-improvement are not mutually exclusive. You actually need this self-acceptance. You need this safety before you can move on to create real lasting change.
Yeah. And so the question is like, how do we get that safety? So I know and I'm guessing you too, it's like, that's why I'm in communities. Like, that's why I'm around people who I can turn to and say, I'm having this thought, which I know is a very old thought and I know is not me anymore. And so in our business, so what we do is we do a 2-day, twice a year, actually 3 times a year next year, but twice a year now, we do a 2-day habit event. And most of the people will come with what I'm going to call like a very surface level habit, right? They'll come into it with like, I really want to drink more water. I really want to run more. I really want to eat more greens. There'll be something like less sugar, right? There's the obvious choices. And by the end of that, almost everybody has completely shifted the habit they're working on, because these are just like the very top. This is not the thing that's driving anything. This is the thing that we've used to put on our like productivity checklist of like, oh, I got that done. Oh, I got something else done. But underneath that is almost always something deeper of like really, really trusting. Do you trust yourself? Do you trust your intuition? Like, do you trust that things work out for you? Do you trust that your body knows how to heal? Like, that has the actual perfect blueprint of health inside, and we just have to tap into that. Like, it's usually more about doing less, thinking less, than it is about what we have to do more and get more restrictive. And it feels so counterintuitive to the world of doing.
Yeah.
That it can be scary. But I say, like, surround yourself with people who are also on this journey in what I'll call a weird way, because it's not going to be the standard way of doing it, where they're like, you know what, I really do need to consider my relationship with my parents or with my body or whatever it is, so I can get to the bottom of what this is actually about.
Yeah. Yeah. I, as you were talking, something came up for me, bringing it back to what you were saying about intuition and being able to build up that tiny muscle and knowing that right from the beginning, this is the right choice. And I think what's really important, especially if you're someone who's like working on trusting yourself around food and around exercise and your body image, everything actually is a right choice, because you will learn a lesson from it. Right? Let's say you think that your intuition is saying, I need to have the really big meal tonight. That's what you think your intuition is saying. Follow that intuition, because you're either going to get two things. Either you're going to say, yes, that was the right choice. It felt really good. Or you're going to say, you know what? That didn't feel good. I feel really bloated. That wasn't necessarily the right choice. How can I learn from this? And can I differentiate? That's the biggest thing that I've talk about is, can I differentiate between an impulse and an intuition? And how does an impulse feel? How does intuition feel? And that's what I loved about our Awaken Your Intuition course that we got to do, is how can I start recognizing what it feels like to make a decision from a place of gut instinct. Like when you really know this is what feels good. And I have this one example of last year or 2 years ago, I was dating a guy who was perfect on paper. Like there was nothing wrong with him. But I remember every time I would get in the bath, because, you know, water can kind of get your intuition juice flowing, I would feel this voice saying, this is not the right person for you. And I didn't understand why. And I almost like I was mad about it, because I was like, but he's great on paper. And eventually, after a few months, I decided, you know what, like there's just something that feels off. So I broke it off with him. And then a week later, I met my now partner, and we've been together for a year and a half, and he is
Wow.
my person. And I can think back on all those times where I've had, when I started my business, it was, I couldn't even explain why I wanted to. It was just a feeling of this is what's right for me. So I can really now look back on those times where I trusted myself, and no one ever looks back and think, "Oh, I'm so mad I trusted my gut. Like that was such a bad decision." And so when you can learn to take these micro decisions and not be afraid of it being the wrong decision, you are going to learn so much about yourself. And all of these, either they're going to be great decisions or they're going to be what you might call mistakes. When you can stop seeing a mistake as something that means something about you, like you're a failure, you're never going to be able to figure this out, and really look at it as an opportunity to get to know yourself better, oh, you will develop the skills that are going to be so beneficial for the rest of your life.
I love that. One of the most important concepts we teach everyone we work with right up front is cause and effect. So we are either at cause or in effect. And at cause is that we're just taking responsibility for whatever's going on. We're not saying you caused it necessarily, but if it's going on in your world, then it is something that you get to address and look at. Whereas the in effect version is that everything is always about what somebody else did or didn't do. Or it can also be about your own body, right? Like it be in effect about like if my body would just start acting right, right? If it would just start listening. And that shift is not an easy shift because this is how I think a lot of us were programmed to connect. Like, let's talk about what's not working and let's complain. And shifting into that and knowing that like, okay, anything that's happening right now, there is some message for me. Like you're saying, like there's something we can do here. One of the processes that we use is called perceptual positions. And the detail you really need to know is you're stepping into three different views. So if I would be speaking as if I am me, and then I would step into somebody else's shoes, and then I'd step into a third person kind of looking down on both of us. And we also have people who've done this with their body. So they're speaking from them to maybe a specific body part. We've had people talk to their back. We've had them talk to their kidneys, all different things, speaking like, hey, body, I'm really pissed off that you're not playing along here, right? Like whatever. And then steps into the role of the back. And now the back is looking back at you. And I actually had someone say, because when we do this, people get really embodied into what it is. It's so cool. Sometimes people are stepping into the role of their brother, and like you can see like their body language will shift, their tone will shift a little bit.
Wow.
And we've had people do like kind of weird nervous tick type things without realizing it. And they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, my brother does do that thing with his hands. So this step into the back, and the second she stepped into the back, she's like, you know what? I would stop hurting if you would stop bending over backwards for everyone else. And it was such an obvious metaphor, right? But like the message just shook her.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, that is kind of the core of why I am in pain. I don't have a limit. I don't stop. I don't ever say no. Like learning to say no, learning to set boundaries is one of the hardest things for all of us people who got the good grades and did the thing, right? That's how we got our love. And so those are the lessons that usually lead to these much bigger openings in like accepting our body or feeling different, or then magically stuff will shift because it's like, okay, I see that you don't need me to be a certain way, and now I'll leave you alone.
I love that. Like being able to, I remember I did this with my business a few months ago, actually in Arizona. So I was having a conversation with Rebecca, who's also in the group, and we were talking about how to get more answers in my business. And what I really realized is that I was making my business part of who I am. And so I was so close to it that it was hard for me to see my business's needs and what it really needed from me. So I started doing this kind of mental exercise of imagining that my business was a coworker or a co-founder, was someone who works with me. And imagining that I was having a conversation with this entity and asking, what would you need to be successful and to feel happy doing it? And I started getting all of these answers. And one of them was like, we don't work later than 5 p.m. And that was like, okay, perfect. Setting a boundary there. We don't work on weekends, setting a boundary there. And I started getting all of these answers. So for anyone who's listening, you can do this with your body, right? Instead of making, because this is like so common, right? We make our bodies part of who we are. We make them mean something about our worth and our success. And so when you can disconnect and actually start speaking to your body as if it's a friend, what do you need from me, right? What messages do you want to send me? You're going to get so many more answers than by going on Google and typing in, what should I do to lose weight?
I love that. You could do that same process, just journaling it out, right? You're just asking, stepping into the shoes of the body or the body part that you're not happy with, and listen. And then in the third part of the process is you're zooming out, like imagining you talking to your body. Like, what do both of these things have in common? Because usually they both really want something. Like they wanted safety and approval, and they have two opposite ways of getting to it. One's like, hey lady, I'm keeping you safe. Like if there's a lack of food, like we are holding on to a little bit, like you haven't been feeding us. So therefore I'm keeping us safe. This is protection for your organs and your brain.
Yeah.
And the other side of us is like, hey, I'm trying to feel safe fitting in a community or a crowd that says I have to look a certain way, or a partner or something, right? Like both of them are possibly going for safety or love or connection. And once you see that they both have this higher purpose, like it's like the wall comes down between them. Now you're like, okay, now we can negotiate. Like we're not actually fighting for something different. We just have a different way of getting there. And the fighting is what's causing all the pain. Because usually, like, once we step into like, oh, I'm really good with this, then right there, we're good. It's just like maybe nothing physically changed, but we're like, oh, I'm good with this now.
Yeah. And like we're so used to being at war with a body, in a fight with our bodies. And when you can, it's like such a simple, for some people, very revolutionary concept of like, actually your body is on your side. Like it's your friend. And when you start working with it, you're going to notice so much more harmony and so much more peace. So I kind of want to finish this off because I want to talk about very briefly the concept of a quantum leap or a breakthrough. So for anyone, I work with a lot of people who have felt stuck, right? They want to change. And I've experienced this in my life before. Like, you know who you want to become, you know what you want to experience, you want to change, but you feel stuck. So in your definition, what does it mean to experience a quantum leap or a breakthrough?
So in my experience, this is stepping into a completely new identity, a future identity, something that's like already exists and you can do. It's just, what are the beliefs, the habits, the thoughts? What are the things we have to drop to fully be that person? And then we get to act every single day like, okay, I am now the person who believes like I am safe and powerful in my body. I am strong. I am connected. What kind of decisions does that person make? Because I know when I was going through like my mold journey and my body felt very unpredictable, I didn't make appointments with people more than a week out, right? Like I wouldn't say like, yeah, 2 weeks, let's put that on the calendar. Because in my mind, I had no idea what was going to be happening in 2 weeks with my body.
Right.
So because of that, one of the ways that I actually started to stop that belief and identity was I just was like, you know what? I am going to schedule things because I do believe I do believe I will be good. I believe that I will be strong. I believe I'll be healthy. And guess what? If I'm not, what was the problem there? The problem was there. Oh my God, I would never want to let somebody down. I wouldn't want to have to cancel on them. I wouldn't want to have to let them know I was having these problems. And because of that, because I wasn't willing to just take the risk that, okay, I can have a hard conversation or I can let somebody down, I was just continually telling my body and brain, like, you don't even trust will be good in a week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got the memo. No, don't
Yeah.
be good in a week, right? So the quantum leaping is knowing where you want to go and then dropping, for me, dropping the belief that I didn't know how it would be. So really owning that new belief and that new identity of like, I will be good to go no matter what. I will figure it out no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I was sharing, we were talking before we started to record. We just hosted a training recently, and when we showed up, our Airbnb was horrific. Like the place we were hosting starting the next morning was horrible. It had literally a cruel bus next door. And so we really quickly figured it out, found a great place, ended up being on 3 acres with land and a pond and turtles. It was way, way better. And so if I didn't have the belief that I can figure things out, that would have been a very painful process.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I was able to quickly step into that CEO role and like, you know what? I know my mentors figured this out. I know other people have figured things out. Like, what do we need to do? So that's, I think, when we go quantum is when we really, really think of like what is we're going for, and then are willing to look at all the beliefs and things that would be stopping us from that. And one at a time, we work through them until we are in that new identity.
Yeah, that's such a great way to put it. I know that for the longest time, I wanted to become something different. I wanted to step into a new identity, and I didn't realize why it wasn't happening. I didn't realize why it wasn't working. And it was only probably in the last year that it really came to me that you have to get uncomfortable. Like, that's the biggest thing about quantum leaps and breakthroughs, at least in my experience. It's not comfortable because those old thoughts, those old emotions, and those old behaviors that you're used to playing out, even though they're not serving you, they are comfortable because you know them. You know what to expect from them, and there's no unfamiliar territory. Whereas when you're stepping into a new thought pattern, new emotions of trust, of like knowing that you can trust yourself, that you're going to be able to handle whatever comes your way, of new behaviors, like you're fighting your old self who's like, no, like I want to hold you in what we know to be comfortable. And, this is the concept of ego versus your higher self. So that was the biggest thing, is like, if you're noticing that you're not experiencing almost like a pull towards your old self and a push towards your new one and some discomfort, you're probably still working on that surface level. And the last question I wanted to ask you is, do you think it's possible to experience a breakthrough, to experience a quantum leap, to really create that lasting change that everyone wants without addressing your mind, without rewiring your beliefs?
That would be nice. No, I do not believe it's possible. I feel the people we see move the fastest and change the quickest are the ones who are willing to lean into that, what you just said, lean into the uncomfortable, lean into the change. So we've had some really crazy stuff happen in just 1 week. So our practitioner trainings are 7 days in person, and it's a very intense process.
Mm-hmm.
And because people are out of their regular environment for that time, they are able to rewire their brain really, really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are willing to change your environment, which is uncomfortable, right? If you're willing to do something completely different, that alone can start to rewire. So we're actually doing process like hypnosis and quantum time technique to do that. And you just doing something different every day. It's like, what would that other identity do, is rewiring. When people come in our training, they're like, day 3, they're like, I'm just so confused. I just feel lost. Like, I don't even know if I'm getting my money's worth. And we're like, that's right. You're right on track, right?
Yeah.
Like, when we're rewiring new pathways, it doesn't feel good because it's new. if you still feel cozy, we're not on a new pathway. Like
Yeah.
we're in the old one that was great, but that's not why you're here. So there is this, if I feel like when I start to feel like, oh, that feels a little bit scary, I'm like, all right, that's a green light for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
let's lean in. I was like, okay, let's have more uncomfortable conversations. Like I want to have a huge retreat center, then I better be able to deal with this one Airbnb that's not up to par, right? Like if I want to be able to grow into something even bigger, like I have to be able to own this. So when
Mm-hmm.
we think of it that way, I think the little ups and downs and challenges can become a game. When we think of it the way I used to think of it was like someday I will get to the place where it's easy. That's a rough one.
It's a reality check when you realize if you want to grow, you're gonna have to feel
Mhm.
uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And what you said about every day asking yourself, who is the person I want to become? I have my clients do an exercise, and all of my listeners, this is something that you can do as well to take what we're talking about today and like put it into practice. And it's on one side of the piece of paper, right? Like draw a line in the middle and write your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors. That's the old you, the things that you no longer want to bring into your future. If you're not someone who wants to count your calories when you're 80 years old, put it in the past. If you don't want to overanalyze labels, put it in the past. If you don't want to keep believing that you're a failure, put it in the past. And then on the other side of the paper, who are you becoming? The thoughts, the emotions, and the behaviors that the new, I don't want to say improved, but new future version of you will practice every single day. Because I personally find that I need to get it out of my head and onto paper. Like I need to know, like in front of me, what am I not tolerating anymore and who am I becoming? Because when you you can listen to this podcast and you can think all of this sounds really great, but then do nothing with it. So it's about taking all of this and actually experiencing the discomfort and taking the actions.
Mm, amen.
Yeah. Okay, I could talk to you for hours, and I think that I'm gonna have to release this as a two-parter. But as we wrap things up, what would you say to that person who is now realizing I've been missing a massive piece of this? I haven't been truly looking inwards and addressing what's holding me back. What would you say to those people as like a very first step
Mhm.
to get started?
Well, first of all, I'd say that's really exciting because imagine if you've gotten as far as you have without addressing like one of the four bodies and what we're thinking, and maybe two of the four bodies, our emotions and our mental
Hmm.
body. I don't know. So it means that there's a lot of room for growth and a lot to step into because I've seen firsthand, like with taking supplements and things, where and running functional medicine, like functional lab work and taking supplements and being like, this should be shifting and it's not. And then someone shifting a belief about their body's ability to receive, et cetera. And then now all of a sudden their progesterone level changes.
Wow.
So the level of actual like message from your brain is amazing. And if we aren't using that yet, just think about what you could open up. Like think about how much more you have to work with. So my first piece of advice is to think of it as an opportunity because what a lot of us want to do is say, "Oh my God, I can't believe I haven't done this yet," and start to guilt and shame ourselves, which just really doesn't help.
No.
So the opportunity is what's that one thing? Like, what's that one belief that I know I'm really, really holding on to that I can start to question? Well, just question what are 10 other possible realities that this could be?
Hmm.
And how would those look? And just try them on. See how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't look at it as this like pass or fail where it either works or it doesn't. It's all gonna be, it's not linear. And there's gonna be some great days and you're really gonna feel like you're making progress. And there's gonna be other days where you feel like the old version of you is really holding on tight. And that's one of the things that has been the most valuable for me is to realize like, yeah, as you're healing, you're going to experience larger chunks of time where you feel like you're stepping into this new version of you, but there's still going to be some days where old beliefs and old emotions are going to be, knocking at your door. And it doesn't mean that you're not making progress. It doesn't mean that you're reverting back. It's a natural part of the healing process.
I love that.
So Megan, I'm sure that people are going to be dying to connect with you. So where can they find you? And do you have any valuable resources to share with my audience so that they can get started?
Yes. So our two main spots where we'd love to have you all come is Instagram. So at Becoming Zesty on Instagram. And then we have a podcast also, Becoming Zesty. And we're in our 20th season of the podcast. The podcast is
What? Oh my goodness. What year did you start?
2016.
That's
actually
amazing.
Don't know. I actually feel like I'm misquoting. Maybe 2018. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Funny thing is we started the podcast as seasons because we were like, we're just going to release this season. The very first one was all about the female cycle. And we just released it as a season thinking we're not committing at the time. We were not people who were committed to a weekly podcast. And we just kept going. So it is funny. It's seasons because once you commit to the seasons, you have to end it and move to another one. But that was the reason. So podcast, our more current, I think actually season 15 is my personal story. People have told me it's kind of like Netflix and a podcast. I really go through all the things that led to where we are now, all the different trainings and things I've tried and done and what worked and what didn't. And the other place that we'd love for you to come join us is actually in person. So we do 2-day events. We do a 2-day habit event where we're looking at habits through all these different lenses we talked about today. It's a place to connect with other leaders, coaches, practitioners. We attract a lot of people who are wanting to make big changes in themselves and in the world, and they feel there's something holding them from that. They're ready to be a little bit more visible. They're ready to just take their habits, right? Like I said, not more water, but to another level. So that our next one will be in Dallas in August. Let me make sure. I believe it's the 20th and 21st, but let me just double check. Yes, August 20th and 21st. And for anybody who's listening who would like to win a free ticket to this event, we would love to give one away on the podcast. So if you leave a review on Sabrina's podcast and give a little hashtag Zesty so that we know you were in response to this episode, you want to do in a week?
Yeah.
Okay. In a week from whenever this goes live, you'll have a week to leave a review, and then you can choose somebody who is going to win a free ticket. We've made the investment for the 2-day event is incredibly low. It's $297. So we have made it so that anybody can come, connecting with like-minded people. I know you and I go to 2-day events, with James. So it's amazing to get in the room with other people who are wanting to go a bit deeper.
Yeah. And seriously, to everyone who's listening, I cannot overstate how powerful in-person events can be. I always come back from them a different person. Luke is always sees me on an emotional high when I come back from these, because if you want to experience truly a quantum leap and a breakthrough, definitely check this out. So I'm going to be putting your link to the Habit Transformation Accelerator in the show notes if you're interested, and leave a review with hashtag Zesty if you want a chance to win a free ticket. I'll be picking a winner a week from when this is aired. And if you have any questions, connect with Megan on Instagram. She's so amazing. And thank you so much for being here. This has been awesome, and I would love to have you back.
I would love that as well. Thank you for having me, Sabrina.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.